Google has successfully agreed to acquire the security firm Wiz for $32 billion. They tried earlier, they tried last year, as we covered in July last year, we covered on the rundown that there was a failed attempt to buy Wiz by Google for a mere $23 billion. Upping the ante by $9 billion seems to have been good stuff. This acquisition is a strategic move to strengthen Google Cloud security offerings, positioning it to better compete with Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure. By leveraging Wiz's technology, Google aims to enhance the security of its cloud infrastructure and applications, thereby attracting more enterprise customers. Tom, is Google lacking in enterprise customers? Are they behind on enterprise and wanting to get there just with security?
Yeah, they're a solid number three. Of course, the problem is that in order to get to number two, you're going to have to climb a pretty high mountain. And I think back to one of those sage pieces of advice that my mom used to tell me: if you love something, let it go. If it comes back to you, it'll cost you an extra $9 billion. Yeah, mom was in finance. Here's the thing: like we actually reported on this less than a year ago, July 24th, 2024, on that episode of the Rundown. We talked about the rumors that were swirling that Google was going to buy Wiz, and everyone was sure that was going to happen at the time. And then Wiz walked away from that, and they said, "Well, we think we can get more." And to their credit, they were right. I just don't think that everybody thought that this was what was going to happen. And I think I understand why. I think it's because the only other two people on the market that really could have afforded to shell out dozens of billions of dollars were both developing their own infrastructure. And this is something that immediately puts Google into a very interesting market. When you're not Amazon or Microsoft, when you don't have name recognition like Coke or Pepsi, how do you differentiate yourself? Well, you have to be different somehow. Maybe you're the more secure cloud. Maybe you're the preferred cloud for Oracle workloads. Maybe you are the one that runs Red Hat the best. Who knows? You can see that naming Oracle, naming IBM, naming other ones, they're very workload specific, right? And I've even said, for a while that I think that, the Google Compute Engine is really more of almost like a hobbyist thing, where it's like, let's build it in GCE to make sure that it works with all these Google services, and then let's port it over to a real cloud to work. But I think that by offering, really secure services that have a multi-cloud component to them, you can kind of basically say, well, we can run it in GCE and then move it around as needed. Here's the thing, though. We already know that Google is under very tight scrutiny from the U.S. federal government. Like, they've even talked about the fact, as we mentioned on the rundown, that they may have to divest Chrome in order to beat some kind of antitrust regulation. And you might remember this from the 90s when people were trying to do it to Microsoft too. If you read or listen to any of the other media that we put out here on the Future and Group, specifically 6.5 Live with Daniel Newman and Patrick Moorhead, Daniel basically said there's a 90% chance that this acquisition doesn't close. Because remember, announcing that you're going to buy somebody is step one. Step two is making sure that nobody has a problem with it. And now you have not only US regulatory agencies, but UK, Europe, and China all lining up. And unless this is a slam dunk for any of those folks, this could get derailed at any point along the way. In fact, there are days where I seriously think that these folks talk to each other and just figure out who's going to be the bad guy today. Remember that Wiz is an Israeli startup firm, which I believe I saw that this would be the biggest exit for an Israeli startup ever. So props to them for renegotiating basically a $9 billion upgrade. But they've got to clear the regulatory hurdles. I don't see how they're not, unless it's just the Department of Justice deciding we don't like that Google is amassing all of these pieces and we got to knock them down a peg. So stay tuned to the rundown, because I'm sure we will be talking about this quite a bit.